and thank you for joining us on this webinar, this info webinar on the Indigenous Tourism Support Program with State of Washington Tourism, SWT, and the George Washington University consulting team. With me today is Alex Collins, Selene Matus, Janet Pruitt, and Ed Hall. They'll go into their backgrounds a little later in the presentation, but I just wanted to acknowledge them from the very beginning. I also want to introduce myself to you folks. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Matthew Ozuna. I am the Destination Development Manager with State of Washington Tourism. I oversee a few programs, or I manage a few programs. One of them is the Indigenous Tourism Support Program. There's another destination development program through State of Washington Tourism called the Rural Tourism Support Program. I'm very much involved in that program as well, in addition to the few other grant programs from State of Washington Tourism. You've probably also seen me on the Tourism Skill Shop, a monthly webinar series broadcast by State of Washington Tourism, where we focus on an issue or skill within the tourism sector. And besides all of those things that I just mentioned, you'll probably see me at the State Tourism Conference working on educational programs there and work with scenic byways around our state and any other initiatives that have to do with workforce development or professional development, things of that nature. So that's a little bit about me. I'll go into today's agenda. We're going to talk about destination development first. I want to make sure there's a framework that we're working from for folks that might be new to destination development. You've probably heard a lot about destination promotion, but not so much destination development, destination management, and even this new concept called destination stewardship. So I'll briefly talk about those in a little bit. I'll also give a brief overview of the Indigenous Tourism Support Program, the ITS support program. I'll let the GW crew go into further detail on how they will manage or facilitate that program in their slides in this webinar. You'll also get to learn more about the crew from George Washington University and again, that broader timeline and approach to destination development and Indigenous tourism with these folks. We also have time for questions at the end. So we're looking forward to a conversation with the folks that are on the webinar today. Feel free to follow up with me after the webinar in December or in January if this program is the right for your community. I should say, just so that we get to know a little everyone on the call just a little bit better, feel free to let us know where you're zooming in from today. Introduce yourselves via the chat if you wish. And then we'll have a better idea of where in the state that you're coming from. That might help the folks from George Washington University as well. Okay, Alex, next slide. Destination development, folks. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of marketing in tourism, but destination development is what I do. We have plenty of marketing colleagues on staff at SWT, but I really kind of work on the planning and the policy side of tourism. So you'll see me going around the state working with regional, local tourism stakeholders on how to improve or enhance tourism in their areas. Now, a lot of that has to do with planning and policy work, partnerships, alliances, things of that nature. I actually look to our neighbors in the north in BC for a great definition of destination development. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I really want you to focus in on the last bit, focus on the supply side of tourism by providing compelling experiences, quality infrastructure, and remarkable services to entice visitation. So the supply side of tourism is the tourism product, things that visitors do in your area, how to improve those, how to kind of develop those from the ground up. I think that's there's a lot of room to work with this program, the ITS program, and Indigenous tourism. But we're also kind of, besides kind of building quality experiences, we also want to kind of maybe focus on workforce retention and recruitment and customer service and things of that nature. So that could be another avenue for the ITS program as well. Quality infrastructure, examples that come to mind are maybe a kiosk or a travel hub. We'll probably not spend too much time on that aspect of destination development within the ITS program, but it's an avenue nonetheless. Like I said, when you're doing this work, you're really kind of working with a lot of tourism stakeholders. And then with this program, the ITS program, it doesn't have to be tribal members only. It could kind of go outside the reservation boundaries. You can work with your local or regional tourism office, other businesses off the reservation, but definitely want to think about federal and state agencies, local governments, and other nonprofits. So we're looking for a very diverse group of stakeholders, not only within the tribal communities, but perhaps even outside of those as well. Thanks, Alex. Now, to focus in on this program, the ITS program, we really want to make sure it's community-driven, culturally respectful, excuse me, and not to rush the process. We have the entire calendar year of 2025 to shepherd this process along. There'll be meetings, there'll be research, there'll be planning, and then there'll be implementation. So hopefully we have a marathon in front of us, not only next year, but going forward over the course of 10 years. And I'll kind of dive into that a little later in my next slide. But I really want to kind of hammer home that the state of Washington tourism, when we're kind of doing this destination development work and Indigenous tourism work, we really want to do what's best for the community, not just the industry, but the community and perhaps even the environment. So I talked about destination development earlier. I kind of want to talk about destination stewardship here. We kind of kept destination stewardship principles, in mind when we developed the framework for the ITS support program. And we really want to do what's good for the community and the environment, and not only the industry. So it's a balancing act between all of those three entities. And that's really, in my interpretation of what destination stewardship is. And so we kind of wanted to make sure we accomplished a few objectives in relation to destination stewardship. Again, that's with adequate data and research, community meetings and partnerships, planning and management, and outcomes or deliverables within this calendar year, but that will set you on a road for continual destination development work over the course of the next 5, 7, or 10 years. We really want to raise awareness and the understanding of Indigenous tourism and the broader tourism industry, the value that brings, whether it's jobs or quality of place, tax revenue, things of that nature. We also want to provide an overview of the state of tourism in this part of Washington, in the regional part of Washington, and on the reservation itself. We also want to kind of take the sentiment of local community members, but also of visitors too, and try to kind of find any insights that can help us develop tourism that works best for visitors and residents. I talked about that broad section of community conversation between folks, tribal folks and non-tribal folks. I think that's very important over the course of this program and over the course of the next 5, 7, or 10 years in that destination development journey. I talked about this earlier, new authentic experiences that enhance the visitor experience, new infrastructure and management systems. Now, I should say this shouldn't fall on one person alone. In my next slide, I'll talk about a committee and then subcommittees that can help get all of this work done. I know that this could be daunting to some folks if there's not already a tourism manager or coordinator as part of tribal government or enterprise, but a strong committee and subcommittees will only kind of help shepherd this work along and divide it. And then resources. At the end of this program, or actually at the end of phase 3 or 4, there's resources from George Washington University and State of Washington Tourism to help implement priority projects that come out of the research data planning and conversations at the community level. And so I'll talk about those very briefly in our next slide. So this program sets folks up on a 10-year journey for destination development or management, whatever kind of meets the needs of the community. So there'll be a statement of intent, a mission statement, what you plan to accomplish over the course of the next 12 months, but also for the next 10 years. You'll have strategic areas of focus. Usually that means it could cultural heritage, agritourism, ecotourism. Maybe it has to do with workforce recruitment and retention, customer service skills. Could even include a bit of marketing. We could probably kind of make the exception for that if needed to help support these the tourism product in the area. Again, I talked about the breakdown earlier, or the long-term vision over 10 years, but we kind of want to break that down into smaller chunks and goals over the course of 12 to 24 months, and then some even medium-term goals, maybe between 2 and 5 years. So we'll keep that in mind with your key stakeholder group, a committee, a task force, a team, call it whatever you'd like, but a committed group of folks that kind of bring their expertise and their knowledge and their resources to this work. And it would usually it's worked best for for there to be subcommittees to actually focus in on a specific area of destination development. Like I said earlier, cultural heritage, outdoor recreation, agritourism, you name it. And you have up to 3 priority projects. I think that I should kind of reiterate that. You don't have to do 3. You can maybe do 1 or 2, but you have the ability to focus on 3. The resources are there. And if you have the people power to do 3, I'd encourage you to do that. I will say that the priority projects will be funded through a federal grant from the Economic Development Administration. This whole program, the Indigenous Tourism Support Program, is a pilot program funded by these federal dollars, and so the grant portion of this program will require a match. That could be cash, but it could also be a donation of someone's time or material. We can kind of talk more a little bit about that later in the application process if this works for you, but it's something to keep in mind early on in the application process or in the exploratory process as well. I think that might be all from me. Am I missing anything, GW team, before I turn it over to Ed? No?
I think you're good, Matt.
Okay, and I think I'm good on time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Edward Hall, and he'll go into a little bit more detail about his background and the rest of the GW consulting team.
Thank you, Matt. I guess good morning, good afternoon. We're scattered here, but I'm Ed Hall, and I'm very pleased to be here back working with Washington State. I'm now working with George Washington University. I'm the Indigenous Economic Development and Tourism Executive in Residence for George Washington University, and I'm recently retired from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And as Matthew was mentioning, federal programs, I was the transportation specialist and tourism coordinator for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and worked extensively in Washington State on a number of projects and closely with AT&I. I look forward to looking at the infrastructure needs, of course, of the communities. And currently, I'm also a consultant working with the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development out of Mesa, Arizona. And they have now a cooperative agreement with the Office of Indian Economic Development to provide coordination of federal resources to tribes in building their capacity for tourism under the Native Act. And so I'm advising them on that and also advising the Office of Indian Economic Development as well as the White House Council on Tourism. And part of our effort is to coordinate federal resources to support tribal capacity building. And so this is a really important project that can really inform how to better work with the federal agencies in identifying those areas. As I said, I was with transportation and so I was also the scenic byways coordinator for the Bureau of Indian Affairs and worked closely on the Lummi Shore Road project, helping the Lummi Nation to um, actually preserve and restore the Lummi Shore Road and working on with Macaw and being part of the Scenic Byways program, getting the Washington state to actually enact legislation so that the tribes in Washington could be a part of the Scenic Byways program. And so as you see, there's a lot of areas where coordination is so important. And one source of funding isn't always the answer. It's how do we bring all of these things to the table? At the beginning of my work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, I worked with George Washington University, and they were instrumental in working with me to establish the American Indian Tourism Conference and the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association. And, I'm so proud of the people I work with and glad to be part of this team because I'm excited to bring our experience and resources to the table to support you. And I'll turn it over to Selene.
Thank you so much, Ed, and good morning. I think it's mostly morning, yes, to all of you. It is just a great honor to be here to walk through the basics about this program, which I think offers unique opportunities, and we'll be talking more about those details. But first, about myself, just briefly, I'm the executive director at the George Washington University International Institute of Tourism Studies. And there I head up a wide range of programs and projects that support Indigenous tourism throughout the US and also bring together Indigenous leaders and industry leaders at a hemispheric level to dialogue, to exchange ideas, and to find those priority areas which have been identified and around which work is occurring. And so you'll see under Ed's, on this slide, under Ed's name, there's reference to the Indigenous Tourism Collaborative of the Americas. And that is just one of several networks that we have sort of brought to fruition with partners, of course, and that are helping to support the development of Indigenous tourism here within the United States and North Dakota, South Dakota, also work in Maine, and most recently Choctaw Nation. So we've had a wide range of initiatives that are supporting Indian country. We've also partnered very heavily in the past with IANTA, who I'm sure, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. And with IANTA, we provided a professional certificate program in cultural heritage tourism. This has evolved, but our offerings on cultural heritage tourism have only evolved with the times as well. And now we're offering a much more general course that you will see come to fruition next year. So we have a lot of work in this space, and we're just delighted to be here and to share more about this program. Over to Jana. You're on mute, Jana.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am delighted to join this team. I have worked with this team for a while. I've worked with Ed Hall for probably 30 years. I don't know. It seems like 30 years anyway. We go way, way back. And I have tried to become a good coach and a good writer, a good strategic planner on behalf of tribes, and primarily tribes who want to develop destinations and want to work in the cultural tourism area. I'm a consultant to George Washington University on any number of their projects and plans, including the collaborative of the Americas, including um, South Dakota Native Tourism Alliance and other things that they have done. And my background is I was in the federal government. I have worked on White House initiatives, primarily in the events and cultural um, tourism and destination initiatives like the White House Millennial Project, the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial, etc. So I have had a lot of experience in writing and grant writing, and especially the Economic Development Administration, and look forward to helping you and supporting you in your in any vision, mission, and goals you have around this project and any other project. I will get into more about how I will help or try to help in a few minutes. Alex?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex. I'm the Center Administrator at the GW International Institute of Tourism Studies, working alongside Selene. I am providing currently a variety of project and program management, as well as planning support for our various portfolio programs, which includes the South Dakota Native Tourism Alliance, product development and cultural heritage tourism training with the Wabanaki Nations in Maine, as well as other destinations in Taos and Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma. I'm really happy to be here and look forward to learning more about you guys.
So now that you have a sense of who the team is from GW, we really wanted to spend just a few moments to sort of recap what we feel are some of the highlights that really make us good partners to the tribes and to the tribe that may be selected to go through this program that SWT is offering. And so as I mentioned, we've been working extensively throughout Indian country over the past decade or so. And so we have a really good understanding of the challenges and realities associated with economic development and tourism development in particular. Our approach has several key components. The first being that, we understand the great diversity within Indian country. And while there are similarities, we recognize that every tribe is different. And so our approach with you will be to listen. It will be to learn, to fully understand what is most important to your specific tribe, and then support you in facilitating these conversations that may be needed to co-create solutions that fit the needs of your tribal nation. As an academic institution and as a community of practice, which is the institute that we represent, we take great pride in investing time. Although, we are consulting in this project, we have been trusted partners to many organizations. And so see our role less as a consultant and more of a facilitator and an extension of your technical teams. And so we hope to provide the coaching that's necessary to ensure that your team, the core team that may form part of this project for your tribe, that everyone is really sort of getting the capacity building and mentorship and coaching that's needed to make the project that you select successful. We've also had a lot of experience in bridge building. Tourism is such an integrated industry. To be successful in tourism requires a lot of community level work, but it also requires community working with tribal organizations, with non-native organizations throughout the industry. And again, because we have this service orientation as an academic institution, we really strive to sort of bring folks together to overcome some of the challenges. And the reality is that, things have gone very wrong, and that there may be trust, that trust may be an issue in many cases. And so we've worked with tribes to, over time, I mean, trust takes time to build. And I think Matthew mentioned these stewardship principles that, that are a part of this program, and time is one of them. That this is a paced approach, that isn't rushing, the tribe, so to speak, that we will work with you to identify those priorities, to figure out where the most impactful opportunities may be, and then with you help to foster those partnerships that may be needed as part of project implementation to sort of bring your project to fruition. Next, please. We also have within this team extensive sort of experience in working through the complexities of cross-jurisdictional environments. And so, the tribes have manageable interest over certain things, the state does other things. And so just, finding those ways to overcome the challenges that exist in crafting new solutions to infrastructure related to tourism, for instance, as a perfect example, among other things. Also, for you to know, and I've mentioned this, but we've worked extensively with state tourism offices. So beyond Indian country, this team, as Jana mentioned already, has done extensive planning for destinations throughout the US, including Taos, New Mexico, Ketchikan, Alaska, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and the list goes on. So we've had that work with state tourism offices. And interestingly, most recently, are currently working with South Dakota's Department of Tourism, so Travel South Dakota, to develop a statewide destination development program. So Matthew's vision and the team here at WST is being sort of picked up in more places. And so many state tourism offices are looking beyond just promotion and looking to support destination development. And you see the list here of other state and federal partners, a lot of federal partners, including the EDA, which is providing support to this program that you may all be a part of over time. So just to give you a sense of, the extensive work that we have working with state and national level agencies. Next, please. So I'd like to take a moment to maybe give you 2 examples of the work that we've done to support Indigenous development. I'm sure that you have your ideas as well. The intent of this segment is to simply stimulate, maybe provide some inspiration to complement your ideas as well, so that you could start to think about, what projects your tribe may be interested in developing through this program that SWT is providing. So this first project shows you a sense of how we've worked with tribes over time. Again, this is over more than a year. This program in Maine focused on Wabanaki cultural tourism development, spanned about 2 years. And it had sort of key components. We started by planning, which would be an initial part of this program too, that SWT is supporting. And we spend a lot of time with the 5 federally recognized tribes in Maine to think about and to identify those natural, cultural assets, events as well that really could form part of the tourism activities that they were keen to sort of develop. We spent time assessing the readiness of the micro and small entrepreneurs and businesses that existed within the tribes and also in areas around the tribes to really determine what level of support and what types of support these entrepreneurs needed in order to support tourism over time. All of the planning, these two areas, and there was a lot more planning that we did and research as well on, for instance, a demand for cultural tourism in Maine and so forth. All of that was then sort of presented in a very sort of succinct Wabanaki cultural tourism plan that contained enough detail, as Matt mentioned, those short and medium term strategies and goals that contained very specific details on those priority initiatives that the tribe felt were needed to take those first initial steps in developing tourism as a collective in the state of Maine. And then we spent time training community fellows as well. So this kind of touches on that mentorship and coaching to provide additional support to sort of understand how it is that tourism works and to really ensure that everyone was sort of speaking from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, you know, having sort of that sort of shared understanding of how the industry works. So that's the first example. Next, please. A second example that we bring to you of the work that we've done goes a little bit deeper and adds a dimension here. And this is the work that we've done with the South Dakota Native Tourism Alliance. This alliance has been, you know, it took 5 years, maybe closer to 6 now, from sort of inception of this idea to where they are now. And now over these 6 years, they have very recently in the past few months sort of submitted their application to be recognized as a 501c3. So now are working toward becoming independent, an independent organization that can function as a destination management and marketing organization for all the 9 federally recognized tribes in South Dakota. So in this example, we had planning, we did a lot of training on product development. That is, how do you develop the itinerary? You know, under the regional planning, of course, the asset inventory that, you know, is just one component of other things. But then with that asset component, the tribes had some sense of what those things were that they wanted to prioritize. And this was different tribe by tribe, and each tribe is at a different place as well. So the most ready tribes really wanted additional training on how to develop experiences. And so in a very rapid manner, we have what is called a product development studio that we've designed. And this is just like an art studio. What you end up with is an itinerary developed and priced. We tested those tours, got feedback from tour operators. And then this alliance now has partnerships, some key partnerships, and one with Trafalgar Travel, which is bringing group tours to them every summer at preset departures. And so this just shows sort of the evolution of what can come about. This past year, we also did tour guide training to expand the base of who it is that can participate in these itineraries. And they are getting a lot of calls as well beyond the existing partners of tour operators and in local, domestic and international that are interested in designing tours with this alliance for implementation. A big part of our work too was on alliance building. So creating a network and the structure for that network and the work that was needed that the tribes wanted because they felt it was very important to work at this together. So in this case, similar to Maine, they're going at this at a regional level. And finally, as I was mentioned, connected to product development, this has reaped very specific benefits, both with the state tourism office. They now have, you know, the basis there. There's a listing of those micro and small enterprises. They're not many, but they're growing. They've been able to launch a full first campaign. This is the state tourism office focused on tribal nations. And of course, these partnerships with tour operators continue to evolve. So this shows you as well kind of the suite of support that we've provided to nations to get you thinking about what you might want to do under this program. Next, please. Similar with North Dakota, what you see on the left there under product development are samples of those specific multi-day tours. So in North Dakota, they took the decision that they wanted to really encourage people to stay within tribal nations. So their product development, like their itineraries are for multiple days, staying, on the tribe and connecting the tribes as well. A lot of work has gone into preparing the sort of representatives from tribal nations to be able to attend trade shows and be able to promote those experiences that have been developed. And you see here representatives from South Dakota, North Dakota, Rilda Means from South Dakota, Jen Martell from North Dakota. They're at a trade show, trying to speak to these tour operators and get them interested in experiences being offered. And similar to South Dakota and North Dakota, there was alliance building. They've been a 501c3 for several years now. So the works around these regional networks started with North Dakota. So I hope this has inspired you to think about some ideas here. I'd now like to turn it over to Alex, who will give us more information about the different phases of work. So if you do choose to submit an application under this program, to give you a sense of how we would organize the work together over that year that Matt mentioned, so that you have some sense. I want to say right from the outset that there's flexibility outlined in here, and of course, but this provides some structure, and this ensures that we're sort of making progress and ensuring that we complete over a year. But there's a little bit of flexibility built in throughout this program, and that would be one of the things that we would discuss and with Matt and with you all, and so the selected tribe, we would sort of finalize a plan with the specific tribe. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Selene. So this, as Matt and Selene have mentioned, this timeline and approach runs for the majority of 2025. And phase one really is the opportunity to get an understanding for what the situation is like within your community. This includes both understanding demand for cultural tourism as well as supply. So from the demand side, we want to understand what people want, essentially, what kind of things within cultural tourism are drawing them to, or what kind of things within cultural tourism they're looking for, and what the overall demand for cultural tourism as a whole is. And this is on at the state level, but also for domestic and international visitors. This is really key because we want, when working with a community, to align products and experiences to demand. Of course, there are some opportunities to create experiences that may in turn create demand that may not exist currently, but we do want to start with understanding what the demand is at that time. This also includes assessing visitor sentiment, understanding through travel reviews or by other more informal means and surveys what they're saying about travel to Washington, tribal nations, and cultural heritage tourism experiences. From the supply side, we want to understand what exists in your area. So this includes doing an asset inventory, taking a look at what kinds of tourism activities, products, experiences, restaurants, accommodations, retail opportunities, or events that your community currently has. And then, as Selene mentioned, with Maine, taking a look at what the readiness level is of those businesses whether they are micro businesses, small or medium size, getting understanding how visitor ready they are or how ready they are to receive visitors through external means such as tour operators. And then we also want to look at what the environment is like within the community for enabling tourism, governance structures, policies, anything and everything to get an understanding of what will make this project successful in the community and what potential challenges or barriers, if anything, there are to success in this program, and working with the community to align demand, supply, and that enabling environment as we run through this experience. This phase also includes steering committee activation. I believe part of the application process will be to identify who your community would like on its steering committee. And of course, as Lenny mentioned, community engagement is really critical to this program and to product development in general. And the participatory planning process will involve both Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, but the shared vision and strategies will, of course, be shaped by the values and aspirations of your tribal community. So on the steering committee can be members within the tribal community, as well as external partners, as Matt was mentioning, other nonprofits, local governments, business owners that you guys feel would make good leaders alongside you on this project. And then the final piece of this phase is validating the research. So understanding demand and supply is largely a desktop research activity on our end. So coming to you guys, presenting the information that we found, getting your feedback on it, and making sure that we're all starting from the same foundation of research and understanding of what the supply and demand is in your community, as well as prioritizing those assets based on that asset inventory, which we'll then use in the second phase. We have about 15 minutes left, so I'm not going to fly through these, but I am going to progress on to slide phase 2. And of course, if there are any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. Phase 2 will continue steering committee engagement. So the steering committee is really crucial to helping to guide this project and program along, helping to provide feedback on research, deliverables, input on the product development, the planning process itself. And this comes in the form of monthly meetings amongst yourselves and with us to help keep this project going in a way that works for your community. This phase also includes an introduction to cultural heritage tourism. This will be a virtual session. As Sunny mentioned, this is something that we recently did with the Cultural Tourism Fellows in Maine. And the purpose of this is because there is such a wide variety of stakeholders within the steering committee and the planning group in general. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page with what cultural heritage tourism is, the benefits of it, the overall demand for it, to provide a foundation for everybody moving forward before we get into the strategic visioning and product development piece of this. So this will happen first, and then lead into, we'll start big. So it'll lead into the strategic visioning workshop part of it. So you guys will get this bigger understanding of this broad scope, what is cultural heritage tourism, and then start to think of, okay, in my community, what do we want to see happen here? What kind of vision do we have for tourism in our area? And once we figure that out, then you get a little smaller and you think about, okay, this is the vision we have for tourism in our area. What kind of products can we then create? Again, thinking about demand and supply that we already talked about, combining it with the vision and putting together these ideas of, these are the products we want to create, whether it's a new trail system or it's a new cultural experience, it's a culinary class or experience with someone in their home. So get a little bit more narrow here, and this will start in person, and this product development studio will then extend virtually over the coming weeks after we have this in-person session. And the reason for that is because this is a very hands-on experience that involves mentorship and coaching with us, the GW team, and providing feedback to you guys as you're working through this product development. It's a very concentrated curriculum, for lack of a better word, of how to develop a product, how to price the product, how to market the product, as Lenny was mentioning, like we did in South Dakota and in Maine. So that will involve weekly sessions with our team to work through that content. And then, as I mentioned, we will provide the feedback to you guys to really hone in on the specifics of the product development plan. Once you guys have that, then as a group, as Matt was mentioning, there's up to 3 projects that can be just decided on for implementation. So depending on the size of your group or depending on how many ideas you have, you may have had 8 ideas that come out of that. So the action planning phase is really to hone in on what are those at most 3 priority projects that we want to pursue. And then we will dive into the planning specifics. We will get thinking, as Matt said, the short-term, medium, and long-term goals for those different projects that you guys are interested in. And there will be 3 working groups, or up to 3. There will be 1 working group per product to work on these, and we'll work alongside you guys on that. And once we have this action plan for the product or products, then we will work with you guys to secure funding for that. So for that piece, I'm going to hand that over to Jana.
Hi again. My part here is very short and very sweet. I'm going to come in and we're going to do a workshop in the state for you to, after you've made your decisions about what projects and what you want to do, I'll come in and show you the 7 steps of successful grant writing so that you can write your grant and submit it. I'll also talk about other kinds of grants. All grants are different. All grant applications are different, but there's no magic involved. And you may qualify after you're done with your making your decisions about your projects. You may qualify for other grants, including federal, foundation, corporate, and other nonprofit grants. And so we'll talk about that as well. And I really, really look forward to seeing you next year in 2025.
Thanks, Jana. So I'll wrap it up here with this phase 4. This is really putting everything together, creating a report of the activities and final recommendations in terms of product and action plan for you and for SWT, Matthew and his team. So I know I went through this really quickly. If I were to summarize this, it really is, again, we're going to start big and get small. We're going to start with understanding supply and demand, understanding cultural heritage tourism, and then honing in on the vision of your community, deciding which products we want to develop, and then prioritizing at most 3, and then creating an action plan that has steps within it that you guys can follow with a short, medium, and long term, and then finishing up with seeking grant funding to implement your action projects. And at that, I will turn it back over to Ed.
Well done. Well done. Ed, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. We're just open for questions now.
Yes, Alex, you nailed it. You summarized that to a T at the very end. And yes, we do have plenty of time for questions. Excuse me. Folks, I can unmute you. We're a small group today, so and I think we're a friendly group. So I could unmute you. You can raise your hand. I can unmute you if you'd like to voice your question over the line, or you can submit your question via the chat box. I'll let you think about your questions in the meantime. I know I have a few for the GW team, but I want to see if there's anyone from Washington state that has questions. Okay, I'll give you another minute or two. GW team. So you've talked about your work in Maine and the Dakotas. Can you give us some insight on how to overcome any obstacles or challenges that you faced in this kind of community approach to tourism development with Indigenous communities?
Hi, Matt. I'm happy to start off, and then Ed, Alex, Jana, please chime in if there are other thoughts. I think one of the um, one of the most significant challenges is understanding that leaders within tribal nations wear many hats, and so time is super precious. And I think the way this program is organized really sort of helps make the process very feasible for tribal nations as a result. But I think that's one of the challenges. It is really spending time to sort of identify that core group. So the change makers that have joined us today, that may be the representatives from different tribes that may sort of pull together different local leaders. We understand that you're very sort of stretched for time, and this is why this team has sort of taught through the process and provided some structure. I think it's important to note that flexibility is critical as well, when dealing with such a sort of dynamic situation. So I do think that that is always one of the hardest things. It's like, getting people to find the time to prioritize this. But we'd like to say that we're here to support you, and you're not going to be going at this alone. And actually, all those other initiatives and many more that we're involved in, are also, that's one of the other things that you can benefit from by being a part of this program is, having the connections to these other tribes as well that have taken those initial steps that might be there for you as well. So, within the capacity building, we integrate those linkages as well. So you'll be meeting other leaders from some of the tribes that we've worked with, and others too that we are not necessarily working with directly, but that we know of and have sort of close contact with, to come in and sort of share ideas. So hopefully that articulates one of the challenges that I think are always top of the list. It's like, how do we find time to do this amidst all the other priorities that we have going on, in our personal lives and then at the tribal level too.
Yeah, and this is Ed, and I think one of the other important things that we find is that it's it's the human resources, right, to really carry these things out and the capacity of your administration. So a lot of times we can write grants and receive money, but the implementation of the grants and having the manpower is really key. So being able to look at manpower issues, being able to look at governance issues, because as was mentioned, a lot of times when you're talking infrastructure, you may have to work through other governments, other jurisdictions to get projects accomplished and funding to the table. So it's it's a lot of different pieces that have to be coordinated at the tribal level. And then another thing is, of course, one of the most crucial things about cultural tourism is that the people are the destination, or the people are the product in a sense. So it's important then that you have a strong steering committee and that you establish protocols and guidelines on how you want tourism in your community, and that steering committee is really informing product development, and then that product development also informs demand. So you aren't just taking demand for demand's sake, you are also cultivating a demand that is appropriate for your destination.
Yes, well said, Ed and Selene. Yeah, those were my two recommendations that I would have for folks as well. Just kind of start early, trying to kind of find those influential people within your community to serve on your steering committee, really focusing on the people, the product, what to share, what not to share. I think that's very important going forward. I would also say, to kind of echo Ed and Selene and what everyone else said too, like this work, it's it's slow, sometimes messy, but it's still good work. And State of Washington Tourism is here to do it right. And we've kind of buffered in plenty of time and budget to do it right. This is a pilot program, so there is some flexibility on what we can do here. Everything from the projects to the grant funding. Again, this is with federal dollars. So we're hoping that next year or the next 2 years, we can have this program again. But I would say to think about this over the holiday break, that you have plenty of time still. The application process is fairly easy. We didn't go into it today, but it is an online application. I can walk you through all of those steps if necessary. And the application deadline is January 10th. I should also say we expect to connect with folks probably by late January. If we do pick a tribal partner, it will probably be late February or late January, early February. We'll start with virtual meetings with a convener, our tribal partner, and maybe kind of a core group, an executive committee, a smaller group of the larger steering committee to kind of help find dates and times for ongoing meetings and community workshops and other deliverables. So the ball really starts to get rolling in February if we do pick a tribal community, and we'll start to kind of pick up in March and April. And then we can kind of reassess once we get through phase 1 or phase 2 if we need more time or more budget. Were there any other questions? We've just passed 12 o'clock noon. Ken, yes, I'll allow you to talk. Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, my name is Ken Workman. I'm a member of the Duwamish tribe. Region is Seattle, Washington, and we are not a federally recognized tribe. Is this program exclusive to federally recognized tribes?
It is not. It is not.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? There's also other grant programs from State of Washington Tourism that go beyond Indigenous tourism, but that are also for Indigenous communities. We do have an Indigenous tourism marketing and production grant, which will help you market your products if those tourism products are already developed. So that's another grant to think about as well. Arts and culture, technical assistance, all of those grants are open to tribal tourism entities. So you feel free to take a look at those programs in 2025 as well. There's always educational content. I told you about the Tourism Skill Shop, the monthly skill shop or webinar series that State of Washington Tourism administers. We also have the State Tourism Conference every year in October, where we kind of focus in on product development, marketing, funding, you name it. So stay tuned, folks, and I hope to reconnect with you in the new year. And thanks for coming today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.